Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new video here on the channel. Now, it's been a while since I did my top 10 favourite Skylanders. It needs to be revisited because a few positions have switched up and I have a few new Skylanders on here to celebrate my top 10 of the year 2021. Now, this is a very solid top 10 that I cannot see changing anytime soon because I adore all of these characters. We're talking 10 out of 10s. They are as close to perfection as Skylanders gets, in my personal opinion. So, if there's a Skylander on this list you dislike, my apologies, but this is just an expression of my opinion. By no degree do I expect you guys to have the same opinion as mine. The fact that our opinions are all unique to us and that different Skylanders connect to us in different ways is a very beautiful thing that should not be tarnished. So let's keep things respectable in the comment sections below. But enough of my preaching. I cannot wait to present you with my top 10 favourite Skylanders as revised for 2021, and this is a little bit of a teaser for an upcoming ranking video that's going to be coming out exactly 1 week from now. It's going to premiere to bring about a new schedule on the channel that starts on Monday, so definitely be sure to keep your eyes out for that. Again, plenty of exciting stuff, but enough of all of this self-promoting. We're going to flick that hair out of the way and then roll that intro without further ado. So kicking us off at number 10, we have none other than Rollerball, oddly enough Luke's favourite Skylander, and quite honestly it's easy to see why. First of all, she's incredibly fast paced, the moves flow together organically, and so naturally, because you transition from one move to another with ease, it just means that you're constantly attacking and constantly moving forward. So just that amount of pacing adds a lot of fun to the game. Like seriously, speeding through Swap Force levels like an absolute speed demon is so much fun, and the increased pacing actually makes Swap Force a better game because of it. So naturally, Rollerball is one of those characters that improves the entirety of the gameplay experience because you're playing with a character that's both speedy as well as overpowered, because you can easily knock back enemies, hone in on them, and just deal all sorts of damage from all fronts. So the speed and power of this character is literally unparalleled. On top of that, her design is awesome, having bladed roller skates for a vampire type character like her with sharp and contrasting colours just makes the figurine presented with such uniqueness and creativity. Rollerball is just an excellent Skylander all around and is very much deserving of a number 10 spot on my list right here. For number 9, I have Zap. Now, first of all, the design, that being of a water dragon, is really creative, and sure, it's not necessarily unique and memorable as there are other dragons in Spyro's Adventure, but yet this one still manages to stand out for having unique attributes such as the lack of wings and a underwater deep suit thingy-bob, which just looks incredibly cool and creates that sharp colour contrast that we love to see in these figurines, mind you. So Zap stands out from a design standpoint, but more importantly yet is his moveset. First of all, it's fast paced and just like Rollerball flows together very, very well, especially when you add the Wow Pow into the mix, where you can easily transition from shooting off your powerful wave projectiles into a slam that's great for crowd control. So naturally enemies never get close because you either defeat them from afar or you're outmaneuvering them in combat, so they never get that chance to hit you. And with that being said, we now get to move back to the Wow Power because it references something very magical, or at least a magic preserve, that being the memory of a young boy named Riley who unfortunately passed away from a rare form of cancer, but he was a Skylander superfan who adored Zap back in Spyro's Adventure, so the developers honoured him by naming Zap's Wow Pow after him, and that is just such a cool thing to have this memory preserved throughout all of time. The fact that Zap is able to just embody such magic is amazing to me, and so I look at this figurine, I see that kid, I see the love he had for Skylanders, and that just, it inspires me honestly, and that's why Zap is more than deserving of number 9 on the list right here. Next up is Double Troubles. First of all, his design is really unique and memorable, and his crazy personality goes alongside that very well. He truly feels like this tiki mask magical warrior type character, not only through the design and the personality, but the gameplay too. His beam being able to hone in on enemies makes him very maneuverable in combat, so naturally it's the fact that you can pick up and play him and guaranteed to have fun on top of that. But of course it's once again the organic flow that ultimately elevates this guy's gameplay to make him as broken as he is, especially when you throw the wow power into the mix, because you can create a split beam that's defeating multiple enemies at once, and once enemies are defeated they create a double which is massive and rockets towards other enemies, defeating them. So even enemies you aren't attacking are being defeated by default as a chain that was started by defeating a single enemy in the first place. So ultimately the character is broken and a lot of fun to play around with because of the unique personality and design. It just makes him memorable and it really helps him to stand out, and not to mention the Series 2 figurine on top of the wow power also has a astounding attention to detail with the little mini and the embodiments within it. Mind you, it's very admirable stuff, the amount of detail they was able to pour into a single figurine, and I love Double Trouble for all those reasons, mind you. At number 7 on my list we have Flarewolf, yet another fast-paced and wild character. Having a massive fireworks bazooka is pretty wild in and of itself, so Flarewolf having the personality to go alongside it really makes sense. And the figurine, first of all, is gorgeous. The attention to detail on that cannon with a dragon wrapped around it has a really great texture, so it makes the toy just really great to play around with, I suppose. And not to mention it's intimidating. It's a character that you want to pick up and play because he looks like he's going to be a bit wild and incredibly beastly. But the gameplay is literal cherry on top of cake, because what we get is an incredibly fast-paced character who can dash around the arena and not get hit, as he can either launch himself up or proceed into yet another dash which knocks back enemies, leaves behind a trail of sparklers, which is just such a huge amount of colour and chaos on screen. It's so much fun to harness this chaos, but again, being able to dash and use projectiles from afar makes him very effective because he's hitting enemies without being hit himself, and even when they get close, that dash not only acts as a way to get away from them, but that huge knockback too. Man, those enemies are not getting close, and I almost feel sorry for absolute annihilation they go through when Flarewolf is on the portal. So yes, he has a massive dragon cannon, and being a huge fan of dragons, I love seeing that astounding attention to detail. The weaponry is awesome and adds an awful lot to the design, but on top of that, it's the personality and gameplay that truly wins me over on Flarewolf. For my number 6, I have Nightlight, who's easily one of the most impressive figurines from the entirety of the Skylanders franchise, as there's glitter scattered all over it, which truly creates this holy type imagery, as he looks like a religious angel figurine. So naturally, that representation of religion is really cool in of itself, and just for bright whites but also for glitter to make him sparkle makes it just a very gorgeous looking figurine, to say the least. And the design on top of all that is both the combination of like an angel and an owl at the same time. The wings are just huge and very well textured, so again it's all of these in conjunction with one another that makes the figurine incredibly fun. And then the gameplay is cherry on top of cake. First of all, it's translated well from figurine to the game. You have some excellent animations here, but just how overpowered the character is in game is what makes him so fun. You can launch enemies up, meaning that they cannot hit you with such ease, and you can create pools of light to increase your damage. So overall, enemies are going to be defeated as soon as they see you coming, and you almost feel sorry for them, in the same vein as how Flarewolf annihilates them, you could say. But the difference here is that Nightlight does it up close and personal. He truly stares down his enemies before finishing them off, and that just sheer intimidation and power is so much fun to harness. I can't emphasize this enough. Nightlight is an excellent Skylander and very much worthy of being number 6 on my list. For number 5, we have Crypt King. Now, first of all, the sharp colour contrast really makes this character stand out. The blacks and the golds are really cool to look at, and not to mention the massive sword and the skeletal remains, I suppose, in conjunction with the armor, just presents him as a really powerful being, and the design is phenomenal. It's incredibly intimidating. So again, it's a character you really want to pick up and play. The developers did a great job at making you want to play as this character, but for the main reason I want to play as this character so much is not only because the figurine looks so damn good, but also because of the fact that the gameplay rises to match it. He is one of the most broken Skylanders gameplay wise, as his swarm hones in on enemies, it stuns them, and then once it expires it heals you, so you're creating this loop of enemies being too slow to attack you, and then even when they do on the off chance manage to attack you, you're healing up at such fast rates because you have 4 swarms expiring one after the other, and that's 100 hailing with absolute ease and speed. Not to mention the sword combos are very well animated and fun to watch, and the chaos is just really fun to helm, you could say. And on top of that, when you critical hit, you bring down a rain of swords. It's just such an organic flow moveset. It's so overpowered and so much fun. For number 4, I have Flashwing, who's rewarding to play in many different fashions. First of all, she can create little crystals on the walls, which when you fire off your primary attack, they too will also fire off crystals, so you can create traps for enemies whilst they follow you. You can fire off your primary attack and hit them with those additional crystals, or sometimes you can even have the crystals situated so you're attacking with 4 shards at once aimed towards a single enemy. The charge attack is powerful and barely takes any time whatsoever, and it doesn't leave you vulnerable as you can dash out the way directly afterwards, making small dash incredibly maneuverable too. She can deal with crowd control with ease as well by either creating a lighthouse by charging her tertiary attack, or sometimes she doesn't even need to charge her tertiary attack because that in and of itself sends shards in just about every direction besides forward. So overall, Flashwing is incredibly overpowered in game and really rewards your maneuverability in combat. You can create positions that give you the advantage by either fleeing and dealing damage to enemies still, or dealing damage to enemies with 4 shards at once. It's insane. And to top it all off, the design is beautiful. It has so many sharp and contrasting colours, and the textures really make it feel crystalline. Like, she is truly a crystal dragon. She looks the part, she feels the part, so the figurine is just presented with such care, and it makes up for such a creative design because we have ourselves a crystalline dragon. Not just a dragon, but a dragon made of gems and crystals, which is an awesome idea executed to perfection. But speaking of dragon signs that amalgamate different things together that execute to perfection, for number 3 I have Drobot. Now Drobot's personality is great. We have this kind of like calculative robot which is fast on his feet with his calculations and everything. It really reminds me of Soundwave with the deep and intimidating robot voice, and I have no problems with that whatsoever, given that Soundwave is my favourite Decepticon. But Drobot is on the side of good and very resourceful too, because he built his suit of armour from scraps on an island, which really reminds me of the Iron Man backstory.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
That alone is pretty cool, but you know, just the amalgamation of Drobot being a dragon as well as a robot is incredibly cool. The design is very much detailed. The Series 2 in particular is very intricate. Every part kind of combines into one another. You have the wings holding for massive gear, and then Drobot's tail through the middle of the gear. It's very intricate, very detailed, very cool to look at. The sharp contrast and colours too really makes the character stand out, not only from a design standpoint, but then there's the gameplay. Sure, you just hold the primary attack button and win, but you cannot say this is not fun. Keeping your distance and just annihilating enemies with lasers, fun doesn't even begin to cover how great the feeling is to be so annihilative. And not to mention, there are other parts of the moveset to keep in mind. If enemies get behind you, then you can use your afterburners to knock them back, and then whilst you're fleeing in combat, you can use the secondary attack button to launch gears off behind you. Either way, Drobot has a toolset for any situation. He's a lot of fun. His personality and gameplay are great and remind me of other great things, so naturally Drobot is a universally beloved Skylander with good reason, hence why he's number 3 on my list. Number 2, however, is going to be Smolder Dash, easily the most fast-paced Skarner I've ever played with because her moves just flow together so organically. I cannot throw out a single move without it feeling as though it's connected in a chain of combos because she can launch out suns which penetrate through enemies, so you can leave those for a few seconds as you whip a different one, and then you can use her Smolder Dash ability to dash straight up to another sun which causes that to explode, pulling in enemies, and then with a quick charge up of your primary attack you launch yourself into the air where you're of course invulnerable. You can't get hit because you're in the air, there's no enemies that have hitboxes up there. Then you launch yourself back down, creating an explosion that defeats all the enemies pulled in by the sun, and then the whip can go in there and hone in on enemies, dealing very fast melee damage to finish them off with the small amounts of health you're going to have left from just your chain of attacks. It's incredible how well this moveset flows together, and it's incredibly fast paced. She absolutely blazes through Swap Force, and just like Rollerball, it makes it a better game for it. These are long levels that can get repetitive and tedious, but it never feels that way when you're blazing through them with Smolder Dash. She improves the quality of the game, which makes her that much better. And to top it all off, even her design, the fact that she's all black makes her incredibly intimidating, but then she has a fire whip, a flame on her hand. It's like such a great attention to detail. The molding here is phenomenal. She's a fire character through and through, and there's a little bit of reality in the mix there because she really reminds me of the Statue of Liberty with her design and all that, especially for crown atop her head, and it all looks magnificent. It's creative, it's fun, and the gameplay ultimately is some of the best any Skarner has to offer, making her my favourite female Skarner and my second favourite Skarner overall. But for those of you who know me, know that my favourite Skarner of all time is Igniter. Boy, I love this guy. First of all, I have a bit of a soft spot for medieval knights, their personality, their valour in battle, you could go as far to say, and Igniter has all of that in his presentation, which is crisp and detailed because his armor has intricate embodiments, especially for turtle shell for a series 2 form. So he looks all armored up and intimidating, especially given the fact that he has a very victorious pose that's either battle ready or, you know, preparing for battle so eagerly because we anticipate Igniter's victory. It's basically a given because the character is so overpowered. So I love the personality and the figurine, how it presents itself, and just the intricate design and the attention to detail. But for gameplay, first of all, you remain maneuverable even whilst you're charging up your Mega Slam, so enemies can attack you, but then as soon as they're vulnerable, you unleash it and destroy them in mere moments. And enemies that are left alive you can hone into with your melee combos, and they have a combo for every situation. You can use your slam to leave behind a blue flame, or you can use the crowd control option, or you can just strike down multiple enemies in front of you to finish them off with a regular combo. And then speaking of those blue flames, they are created whenever you go into your fire spirit form. Sure, you leave your body behind and it's vulnerable, but that is for risk. For reward is being able to engulf and entrap your enemies in that blue spirit. It's effectively his projectile game, which can be so overpowered, especially since that blue fire lingers and deals constant damage to enemies. So if they are not escaping the wrath of Igniter, he's too damn powerful. And again, everything about his figurine and his presentation just speaks to me personally. I love the character, I feel this personal connection to him, and I am honoured to call him my favourite Skarner of all time. Now, with that all being said and done, this video is coming to an end, but before that happens, I first want to thank all my Blazing Knights and Scorching Dragons whose support allow me to continue pumping out quality videos like this one. Without them, this all wouldn't be possible. Therefore, I genuinely appreciate every last one of you from the bottom of my heart. If you enjoyed this video, I have others you can watch by clicking on screen now, and you can even subscribe by pressing the button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one, but until that moment arises, peace!